Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Matt Johnson with SFREP here in Charlotte. Glad you could join us for this webinar on an introduction to Appraise-It Pro. So if you haven't done one of these webinars with us before, a couple of things we want to get out of the way first. Along the bottom of the screen, there are going to be a couple of icons, and the one that looks like a set of brackets, that is going to allow you to put the video into full screen. Now, that will allow you to see everything a lot better. However, it will get rid of the chat. Okay, and the chat's going to be important because if you're just watching this video regularly, it'll be along the right-hand side over here. And then if you put it into theater mode, which is going to be the icon at the bottom that looks like an elongated rectangle, that'll make it bigger and easier to see, but you'll still have the chat and it will move down to the bottom. Now that chat, I'll be able to see that. Everybody else will be able to see it. If you have any questions, if you want to talk amongst yourselves, feel free to do that. I will be happy to answer any questions as you guys have them. If you are watching this webinar after it was live, after the fact, you can always use the email training@sfrep.com if you want to ask any questions. If you have any follow-up questions for me, if you have any comments, anything like that, feel free to send them to me. But of course, if you need immediate assistance, you're going to want to either email tech@sfrep.com or you're going to want to call 800-644-4051. Okay, so we got quite a few of you in here. It's great to have you guys with us. We're going to go ahead and we are going to get started. So this webinar is going to be geared, man, that's a nice, I don't know where that is, but that is a nice looking scene on the background there. My background changes every day from Bing backgrounds or whatever. Anyway, this webinar is going to be geared a lot towards folks who are coming over from Appraise-It Classic over to Pro. But for those of you who may be moving over to or thinking of moving over to SFREP from some other software vendor, first of all, welcome. Second of all, you will get a lot out of this too. And I will try to highlight some things that will be important for you. But let me know in the chat if you are moving over from another software vendor, and I'll try to make sure that I highlight those things for you. And if need be, you can just go ahead and send me an email to training@sfrep.com. Now, for those of you moving over from Appraise-It Classic, you will notice that I have both Appraise-It Classic, which is right here, and Appraise-It Pro installed on this system at the same time. And that's one of the beauties of Appraise-It Pro. You can install it and start playing around with it and using it, and it will not affect your operation of Appraise-It Classic in any way. As a matter of fact, you will be able to go back to Classic at any time. Now, Appraise-It Pro is fully compatible with Appraise-It Classic, and you will be able to move, start an appraisal in Appraise-It Classic, and then open it up in Appraise-It Pro to continue it. Or you can actually do it vice versa. You can actually start something in Appraise-It Pro. If you get stuck, you don't know how to do something, can't get in touch with somebody to help you out, you always have that option to move back from Appraise-It Pro back over to Appraise-It Classic. All right, so just know that you do have both of these installed at the same time. So don't have any kind of trepidation or fear with installing Appraise-It Pro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and launch Appraise-It Pro now. It's going to take just a second. It's the first time I've launched it today, I believe. So it'll take just about maybe 2 or 3 more seconds extra just so it can load everything into memory. You aren't seeing the splash screen on your screen. That's going to actually show up over here on my other screen that you can't see, but the full-blown program will open up here in just a second. There we go. Now, when you first open up Appraise-It Pro, it is going to open up to this area that is called the backstage. Now, that's what Microsoft calls it, and that's what our tech support that's what our developers call it. I like to call it kind of the super file menu because that's really what it is. If I use this little arrow here to jump back over to the editing area of Appraise-It Pro, and of course this is blank right now because there are no reports open. So this area right here is just blank. But this is the area where you actually edit the report in Appraise-It Pro. And to get back over to that backstage area that they call it, I like to call it super file menu, you actually have to click on the file menu. And you'll notice that the file menu is a little bit different. It's shaded this black to kind of separate it out a little bit. When I click on that, it jumps me back over to this area. So I understand the backstage analogy. You know, it's kind of a theater analogy, I guess. But like I said, I like to call it the super file menu because you have to get to it from the file menu, and it contains everything that would be in the file menu in an older style program like Appraise-It Classic or, you know, a bunch of other programs. So in here on the left-hand side, we kind of have the selection, the menu selection of what we can do in the backstage. And then on the right-hand side, we have the area that we interact with. And when you first start Appraise-It Pro, you're going to be in this Welcome to Appraise-It Pro, What's New kind of section here. And this is just a place where we can communicate with you, give you some important information about what's going on at SFREP, what's going on with Appraise-It Pro, things like that. We don't update it terribly often, but we do update it when it's important. You can see the last time it was updated here was in October of 2023. We're not going to ever put videos, images, banners, advertisements. None of that stuff's going to go here. It's just going to be all text and just important stuff that we think you need to be made aware of. Next is going to be new. And this is basically like File New in Appraise-It Classic or File New in most programs. This is where you can start a fresh appraisal from. Now, there are two ways that you guys actually three ways you guys probably start an appraisal in Appraise-It Classic or in another appraisal program. You may start a blank appraisal fresh from a template or skeleton. We call them skeletons in Appraise-It Classic. In Appraise-It Pro, they're called templates. And in other software packages, they're usually called templates. And for right now, I'm going to go over templates here a little bit more, but for right now, think of a template basically as a skeleton. They serve the same purpose, but under the hood, they're very different. Templates are way easier to create and way easier to deal with. So this is where you would start fresh with a blank template or with a template you'd created. In Appraise-It Classic, you may have started from a report file that was kind of one of a template that you would clone. So it was kind of filled out a little bit, and then you would open it up, and that's how you'd start your new appraisal and then save it as a report file. That's essentially what a template is in Appraise-It Pro. You may have also found a report in a similar area or in a similar type of property or something like that, and then you would open that up and modify it and then save it as a new file. That's what we call cloning. You can do that here in Appraise-It Pro as well, but you would do that from the open menu. What we're going to be talking about is new. So there's two things you can do with the new. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the UAD residential appraisal report that's under frequently used. You can see just like in Appraise-It Classic, all of the different primary report types are listed under these different sections here. They're kind of organized together and grouped together. And then there's one up here called frequently used, which is going to have your last, I believe it's 10 most frequently used report types. You can just find them right up here at the top. If you want to search for something, you can just come up here to the search box, type in, let's say 2055, and that is going to show us all of the 2055s that show up anywhere in the report types list. Okay, so you can see here that it shows up in frequently used in both the UAD and the non-lender versions. It's also going to show up under UAD. It's also going to show up under Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And then there are the non-lender versions right here, pretty self-explanatory there. The ones that you would use for estate sales and, person-to-person sales, whatever. And then we also have these legacy forms. These are the pre-2005 forms. We keep them in there so that we maintain backwards compatibility to old reports. And because there are some people that still use these for non-lending purposes, so we leave them in there as well. And if you want to see the list in its entirety again, you just click on the X there, and now we're seeing everything. Now, when I select one of these, over here on the right, it will show me all of the templates that I've created for that report type. And remember that a template is going to be associated with a larger report type. So in this case, a UAD 1004. And for me, I've created these templates based on the town that they're in. Now, all of these are going to be suburbs of Charlotte or Charlotte proper. And That's kind of the reason I've created these, but you can create them for any reason. You can create them for individual banks or lenders. You can create them for individual AMCs. You could create them for individual zip codes, neighborhoods, types of properties, whatever you want to do. You can name it whatever you want. And then that's going to be your starting place for that particular report type. Now, if I want, I can just select this default template, which is going to be in here for all of them. You see, if I just select a random one, there's going to be a default template in there. And what Appraise-It Pro does is when you open up the default template, by default, it is going to just kind of have all of the things that you're generally going to need in order to start that report. Comp pages, listing pages, photo pages, sketches, maps, things like that. Now, if you want to just open up a really bare bones starter default template, you can uncheck this checkbox down here at the bottom, which says include suggested forms in the default template. If you uncheck that, it's basically going to open up a very bare bones report. If you have it checked, it's going to include most of those addenda that you're going to need in the process of making a report. Now, something very important for those of you moving over from Appraise-It Classic to Appraise-It Pro. There is going to be a point here that I'm going to go over how you build reports. That is the single most important thing that you guys need to know. Because the way you build a report at the beginning in Appraise-It Pro is very, very different from the way that you build a report in Appraise-It Classic. And I'll let you know when we get to that point. But if you get anything from this webinar, it's going to be how you start and begin and build your reports. That's the most important thing. Okay, so I'll let you know when we get to that point. But I just want to make you aware that that is going to be a thing. All right. Now, if I want to go ahead and just open up the default template for the UAD 1004, I could just double click here, or I could come over here and double click on template, or I could double click on one of these templates that I've created, and it's just going to open up that template. Basically, like I said, a template is like a skeleton is in Appraise-It Classic, but all you really need to know is that a template is nothing more than a regular report file that has been promoted to template status. Okay, just a regular report file. You can fill it out in any way you want, pre-fill it out, put photos in there, put licenses or seals or whatever you want into it, and then save it as a template. And it's just a report file that has been designated a template. That's it. Next, we're going to go to Open. Open, I don't anticipate many people using quite as much. I think most people are going to start reports either from new or from searching. However, Open can be very helpful if you just want to grab that report that you worked on 2 days ago. And that's because it has this recent reports section here. So this is going to be about the last 20 reports that you worked on. And if you don't want to go through the hassle or the effort of searching for something or browsing to it or whatever, you can just come here to Open, find it in the report list, because if it was only 1, 2, 3 days ago, you're going to remember what the report file name was pretty easily. So you can just find it in this list, double click on it to open it up, and then do what you need to do. For something that has been 2 weeks ago or a month ago, you're probably going to want to do a search, and we'll go over that here in a minute. So that's where these recent reports are. Now over here on the left-hand side, you have the report section, and that has Open Report, Open Classic Report, and Open Mismo Document. Open Report is to open up an Appraise-It Pro file, a report file. Open Classic Report is just what it says, like opening up an Appraise-It Classic report file. For those of you moving over from Alamode or ACI or Bradford or whoever, you're never going to use this. But for those of you moving over from Appraise-It Classic, this can be helpful if let's say a colleague or a friend sent you a Appraise-It Classic report and you need to open it up. It's not going to be in your search. It's going to be sitting on your desktop because you saved it out of your email. You would click on this to browse to it and open it up. Remember that Appraise-It Pro can open up any file from Appraise-It Classic, any file from Appraise-It Pro. It'll treat them just like they're all Appraise-It Pro files. It's going to seamlessly open that stuff up. You don't have to do anything special. But the other thing it's going to do is it's going to treat Mismo XML files as if they're Appraise-It Pro reports as well. So if you're moving over from ACI, Alamode, or Bradford, you can save all of your, if you've been archiving your Mismo XML files, you can save those into a subfolder in Appraise-It Pro, or our tech support can help you out with this. and then they'll be indexed and you'll be able to open them just as if they were regular report files. If you are an Appraise-It Pro user and you have a colleague or a friend locally or somewhere that wants to share one of their reports with you, they can just send you that Mismo XML file. You can save it out of your email onto, say, your desktop, and then open it up by coming here to open and selecting Open Mismo Document. And you'll be able to open that up and view it and interact with it just as if it was a regular Appraise-It profile. That is why one of the things that we do with Appraise-It Pro is we actually distribute it to AMCs and lenders as a Mismo viewer, because they can just open up any Mismo file from any software vendor and give you a much easier to read version of that than having to kind of go through and learn how to read XML. It's going to give it to you in a nice, easy to read format. And if you know somebody that needs that, and if they want to take a look at it, you can just go to mismoviewer. I think it's mismoviewer.com. Let me check that real quick. I think it's, yep, it's mismoviewer.com. So they can actually go to this website, mismoviewer.com, and then they can download, if they're like with an AMC or lender, they can download Appraise-It Pro and just use it as a Mismo viewer. They won't be able to edit reports, but they'll be able to look at them. Then finally, we have template, open classic template. Now, the reason these are here, open template, you're probably not going to use because you'd probably open the template from the file new area. But open classic template, probably a question that a lot of you have is, hey, when I install Appraise-It Pro, is it going to bring over all of my old templates, all of my old skeletons from Appraise-It Classic? The answer to that is no, not automatically. And the reason for that is that when we were initially testing Appraise-It Pro, we did that. But we found that that's not really what appraisers wanted. It's kind of one of those things where you think that's what you want until it happens, and then it's not, because it brought over everything. So it brought over all of your old templates that or your skeletons that you had forgotten about, your dirty skeletons, your broken skeletons, your corrupted skeletons, brought all that stuff over, caused a lot of problems. So what we decided to do was, what we recommend you do is install create templates new when you go over to Appraise-It Pro from scratch, for two reasons. One, you're going to have nice, clean templates to begin everything with. And two, in creating those templates, you're going to learn how to use Appraise-It Pro very quickly. So it's a good learning opportunity when you create those templates from scratch. But we do understand that there are going to be templates that you have that are very complicated and you don't want to recreate them all from scratch. So instead of having to open up Appraise-It Classic and then open up Appraise-It Pro and then do copying and pasting back and forth, we do allow you to actually use Open Classic Skeleton, browse to that skeleton, load it up, and then tweak it, clean it up, edit it, and then save it. So, we don't want to make these really complex skeletons have to redo them again. Now, if you have any problems or questions with this or need a little assistance, remember that our tech support is always there to help you, 800-644-4051. This is one of the things they do all the time, and they'll be happy to help you out with getting all of that moved over and set up. Search. Now, there is a part 2 to this webinar, and in that part 2, I go over search a little bit more in depth. It's called Appraise-It Pro Tips and Tricks. It's the webinar that we will be doing at the beginning of 2023 in the first week of January of 2023. But for now, I'm just going to go over the basics of doing a search. So up here at the top, you have your search boxes, search terms. And down here at the bottom, you have your results. Just like in Appraise-It Classic or any, what do they call it? A type of database search. It's like an exclusionary database search. The more info that you enter into these boxes, the more narrow and targeted your search results are going to be. And you can do partial entries in here. So if you are doing searches in Mecklenburg County, which is where Charlotte is, you can also say, let's say we don't want Charlotte though, we want one of the suburbs that's still in Mecklenburg County. So we can do Pineville. You don't have to worry about state. There's only one zip code in Pineville, but if there was more than one, you could say You want this specific zip code in Pineville, in Mecklenburg County, and maybe you want them on Elm Street, okay? Now when you would hit search, it would find you all of the appraisals that contain an address on Elm Street, in Pineville, in the zip code 28134 in Mecklenburg County, because there are parts of Pineville that are not in Mecklenburg County. Maybe. Just pretend there were. I don't know if there actually is. But let's say that that was the case. So this would be an exclusionary search result. So it's excluding everything and including only the things that you actually want. And remember, and see right here, I've just entered a partial street address. If I wanted to see everything that started with 1001, then I could do that. And you'll see that it actually autofills. So you'll notice that I did 10. I just put 1 in there and it's showing me a bunch of addresses. These are being auto-filled out of the database for me automatically. So as I start typing in, I'm like, oh, that's the one. I can just hit enter and it puts it in there. Okay. Now I'm going to clear everything here because I don't use Appraise-It Pro to actually do appraisals. So what I want to, I'm not going to do some type of search. So I'm just going to click search with everything blank. And what that's going to do is it's essentially going to show everything that's in my database, which is like 6 appraisals. And that's fine. That we'll just pretend that I've done an exclusionary search there. Now over here, these are my results. If I scroll out here using the scroll bar to the right, I can see all of the information about that particular appraisal report file that has been stored in the database and made it easy for me to find. And if I single click on something, maybe I'm pretty sure that it's this one right here that I was looking for. So I can click on that. And by the way, this is the house I grew up in. You can go look it up. It's fine. I don't live there anymore. And that is not the house that I grew up in. That's just a random photo. But if I select this, it will give me the front view photo of that particular house. Plus, it's going to give me some pertinent information about that house as well, just to kind of aid me in assuring me that I've got the right report. And now if I want to open it up, I can simply double click it, or I can come down here and I can click on Open Report. And then when I'm done, I can click on Clear. It's going to clear everything out, including all of my search results, and I'm ready to search for something again. So real simple. In part 2 of this webinar, I do go over how you can customize the search boxes that are up here, because let's face it, if I am licensed in North Carolina, I don't need to search in any other state. So I can just get rid of state, or I can turn it into something else. And we also go over how to import comps and forms using this interface, and how to access your work file as well. Finally, we're going to go over settings. Settings is real simple. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in here. Basically, all you need to know is this is where you can come and you can customize Appraise-It Pro to your heart's content. If you are someone who likes to tinker, have at it. I would recommend, though, that you do go ahead and write down anything that you change on a Post-it note. That way, if it causes some type of behavior that you don't like, you can come back and you can change it. If you are somebody who, like a lot of you, who you're a little bit intimidated by computers and these settings, you don't know what they do, I wouldn't come in here unless you're with one of our tech support people. But if there's something that you want Appraise-It Pro to do that it doesn't do, contact our tech support, talk with them. There may be a setting in here that they can direct you to and have you change it while you're on the phone, and that will make Appraise-It Pro do what you want it to do. There's a lot of stuff, really deep, in-depth stuff in here. Okay. So let's come back up here to new, and I'm going to open up a blank default 1004. So it's going to be this default template here, just so that I can kind of show you how the editing of a report works. So we're going to double click on default template. And remember, I have that checkbox down at the bottom check. So it is going to add in all of the extra addenda that it thinks that I will probably need. So things like a sketch addenda and everything. Now, this right here, editing of the report, whether you're moving over from a la mode or ACI, or if you're moving over from Appraise-It Classic, this will look very familiar to you. Although if you're moving over from Classic, the colors have changed, but the concepts are the same. It's still what's called a WYSIWYG editor, which means what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG, okay? And what that means is that basically this is exactly how the report is going to look to you. And as you type stuff in here, that is how it's going to print out. Now, ignore the colors because it won't print out the colors. The colors are for your information only, okay? And I'll go over what those colors mean here in a minute. Over to the side, if you're coming over from Appraise-It Classic, you know that we had the UAD helper, which was kind of off to the side. we've kind of run with that concept and we've put some additional panels in here. There is the report panel, the validator, the responses panel, and the format panel. Plus there's one extra panel in here that's tabbed out, and I'll show you what that is here in a minute. That's that help. I'll show you what the help is for. We're going to start in report. Now remember I told you a couple minutes ago that one thing you really need to pay attention to in this webinar, and this is it. It deals with how and when you build a report in Appraise-It Pro. So the report panel is key here. The report panel is basically the table of contents for your report. Now in Appraise-It Classic, you would fill everything out that you needed, and then you would construct your report at the end when you were ready to print. You maybe had some print schemes that had that kind of pre-done and kind of pre-selecting what you needed, and you could, add to it. That's kind of flipped the other way in Appraise-It Pro. You're going to build everything at the very beginning and as you move along in the report process. So I'm going to actually adjust this so I can see this a little bit better. This is everything that's in the report, and this is the order in which all of that stuff is in. That's key. Okay. So because of that, you're going to want to only have things in this report panel that you are going to use and fill out. So let's say that you're doing a report that is up on the top of a hill. Flooding is not a concern. You're not going to be using a flood addendum, but that's already in here. This flood map is already in here. So what I can do, if I'm not going to be using it, I want to get rid of it because I want to keep everything in here tidy, because you want to be able to open up a report and instantly see what's in it. Like if you come back to it 2 months, a year later, you want to instantly be able to see what's in it and what order it was in. So if there's no flood map, we don't want that to show up. Okay, so I'm going to click on flood map, click on remove, say yes, and it's out of here. Now you might be thinking, well, I like to have my location map at the beginning of the report, and you've got it down here in the middle. I don't know if you guys actually want to do that, if anybody wants to do that, but for demonstration's sake, we want to put the location map at the very beginning. Okay, so what I can do is I can just simply click and hold, and I'm going to drag it up here to the top. And now location map is at the beginning. So I can actually drag these items in any order that I want. And then that's the order that they're going to be delivered in the PDF. And sometimes it's the order it's going to be delivered in the, like let's say the ENV file for AI Ready or Appraisal Port or whatever. But for the most part, we're talking about the PDF, because the Mismo XML is going to be in the order that it wants it in. You don't get to choose. All right. So we know how to remove something and we know how to move it around. What about if we want to add something? Well, I'm going to come up here to the add button up here at the top, and I don't think we use them anymore, but let's just, for demonstration purposes, we're going to do COVID. There's a couple of COVID addendums in here. We want this desktop COVID addendum. So if I want to put this in, I can either double click here and it's just going to add it to the bottom of the list. And by the way, this right here, just a rendering of what's over here. And you see it put it down there at the bottom, but maybe I don't want it at the bottom. So I'm going to remove that with this little arrow. And then let's say I want it to go in right here above sales comps 4 through 6. So I can click and drag it in here and put it right there. And now it's above sales comps 4 through 6. It hasn't shown up over here yet. This is just kind of temporarily showing you what it's going to be. And then when I'm ready to finalize that, I'm going to click Save and Close. And now there it is. There's my COVID addendum. I don't need it though, because COVID's not really a thing anymore. Well, it is, but it's, you know what I mean. It's not a thing. So we're going to highlight it and we're going to click on Remove. We're going to say yes, and now it's out of there. Now you may have noticed some icons over here on the left-hand side. Star means that is the primary form type, and that cannot be removed. It has to be in there. Now in the second part of this webinar, we do show you how you can actually change the report type by just adding in another report form in there, and it'll replace it and then convert it. But for right now, this can't be removed. Also, anything with a padlock is integral to the way that Appraise-It Pro works with a report, so it also cannot be removed. So that's why it's got a little padlock icon. Some of these don't have any icons at all, but some of them have little green pluses that match this add button up here at the top. And what that means is that those are dynamic. You can dynamically add more of them. So let's say sketch right here. If I want to add a second sketch page, I can just click on that little plus, and there it is. Now it's sketch 2 is in there. Hit it again. Now I've got sketch 3. What if I want to add comps 7 through 9? I click on the plus, And not only will it add comps 7 through 9, but it's also going to add comps 7 through 9 photos as well. And then I can just delete them to get rid of them. Now, at Appraise-It Classic, you could do, I believe, up to 9 comparables on a regular report skeleton. You could add more, but it was kind of a convoluted process. With Appraise-It Pro, you can add as many to your template as you want. You can add as many to your report as you want. We do not limit you on how many comps you can add to a report. Now, keep in mind that whoever you're sending your report to may have a limit, but we don't have a limit for you, okay? All right. Anybody have any questions on it, just get them into the chat and I'll be happy to answer them for you, okay? But that's really the part that you really need to know. The report panel is what's contained in the report and in what order that it's contained. And make sure you get all of this order squared away before you go to print or to deliver your report in Mizmo XML. There are ways that you can change it at that point, but there's no real need to do that. If you just make sure that you have established the order of the report and what's in it at the beginning, and you only keep what you filled out in the report, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Down below it is the validator panel. And we did have something similar to this in Appraise-It Classic, but it's a little bit more robust, quite a bit more robust in Appraise-It Pro. 2 types of validation are happening, and we're going to start moving along here because we're getting towards the end here. So I know we're at 31 minutes, but it's going to get faster from here on out, I promise. Validator panel, 2 types of validation happening. There is real-time validation and then a comprehensive validation that's going to happen at the end. The comprehensive validation can be invoked by clicking this validate button. I am not going to press it right now because it is going to freak out because this is an empty report and everything's going to turn red. But when you have a fully done report, when you're like, I know I've done everything right, I'm ready to deliver this, come over here, click on validate. It's going to check your math, going to check your spelling, going to check for words that are either, and remember, because I see this a lot in the appraisal forums on Facebook and elsewhere, there are 2 types of words that it's looking for. It's going to look for objectionable words, which I know that there's a lot of discussion about what's objectionable and why and for what reason, but at the end of the day, they're objectionable words according to Fannie and Freddie, and so they don't want them in the report. These are going to be things like, bad words or slightly racist or slightly sexist or, whatever they determine doesn't belong in a report. It's going to check for those. Okay. So it's going to do that for you. The other thing is that there are also subjective words. So objective and then subjective. Subjective is different and people get confused on this. Subjective would be that it is in a good school district, or this is a good starter home, or this is, I don't know. You get the picture. These are words that, there's going to be a lot of discussion on this as well, but we're going to catch them for you because it's not really the appraiser's place to say if this is a good school district. You know what I mean? So that's just according to Fannie and Freddie, that's what they want. So we're going to catch those words for you as well. Okay. So keep that in mind. Now there is also real-time validation happening, and real-time validation is going to catch little mistakes as you go along. And the easiest way to show this to you is with the state. If I put NC in there, it is perfectly fine with that, no problems at all. But if I put BC, which would be very easy to accidentally hit those letters when you mean NC because they're just shifted slightly, now it's going to turn red because BC, while it is a Canadian province, is not a U.S. state, so it is going to turn red. However, you can do PR for Puerto Rico. Happy with that. You can do VI for Virgin Islands. You can do GU for Guam. It's all happy with those because appraisers go by the same rules in those U.S. territories as they do in regular states. So those are acceptable. But SK for Saskatchewan, that is not acceptable. And it's going to do that elsewhere. That's just an example. So if you forget to fill out a field that is a prerequisite or a post-requisite for another field, then it's going to turn it red. Things like that. Simple things, it's going to flag for you. Up here at the top, oh, by the way, one more thing. This rule set here, I don't want to go into it too much, but there are 2 rule sets. There's UCDP, which is the standard UAD, and then there's FHA. The 2 rule sets are almost identical. There's just a couple of small little differences. If you're doing an FHA report, you're going to want to switch this to FHA, but it is going to remember that for next time. So every time you start a report, double check this to make sure that the correct rule set is selected for you. Responses. This is the old F key toolbar up at the top that was in Appraise-It Classic. This is one of my favorite things that we've done with Appraise-It Pro is how we have done responses. So they are per field. So you can see right here, I have the city field. And in here, I've already created Matthews, Concord, Monroe, Gastonia, and Mint Hill. Now, if I want to put another one in here, and I want to put Charlotte in there, I'm going to put Charlotte, and then I'm going to come up here to Manage Responses. It's already filled it in here. I can give it a title, but really you only need a title if you're doing like a multi-line field with a paragraph in there or something. If it's a one-word answer, you don't really need a title. I can assign it an F key if I want, and in this case, I do want to assign it F4. I click on Save, I click on Close, and now Charlotte is now in there. And if I wanted to get rid of it, I could just select it, click delete response, and get rid of it. Let's say if I want to get rid of Mint Hill, delete response, say yes. I can also have a ton of responses in here, as many as you want, that are not associated with an F key. So you can still use the F key. So if I want to hit F4, it's going to fill in Charlotte. But there's other ways you can fill in information as well. My favorite is autocomplete. So if I come into the city field and I start typing CH, it's going to know that I meant Charlotte. Now you'll see when I did C, it's going to go in alphabetical order. So I do C and, or excuse me, not alphabetical order, but the order that it, actually, I'm not sure. I think it's the order. Yeah, it's just that Concord was in there first. So it's going to go with Concord for me. But as soon as I hit H, it knows that I mean Charlotte. It's going to autocomplete Charlotte. I'm going to tab out. And now I have Charlotte in there. So if you fill out your responses really well, you could just start typing the first or second letter of each word and just keep on tabbing. The other way you can do this is you can just come over here and you can double click. So now it's going to fill in Gastonia. Or I can hit F2 and I can select it from a list. Real simple. And finally, I want to show you, well, not finally, real quick, I want to show you help. This is not going to be for most of you anything you need to really remember or worry about, but the help tab is here if you have a trainee or somebody you're onboarding who doesn't know a lot about appraising. They're just kind of helping you with filling out reports. Any field in here is going to have help text associated with it, and it'll tell you what needs to go into that field. So if you have somebody new working with you, let them know that that help is there. For those of us who have been doing this for a very long time, you already know all of the different, abbreviations and what's supposed to go in there. So we all know it by heart by this point. And finally, this is the format field. Now, the format panel is basically the old UAD panel from Appraise-It Classic. It's essentially the same thing. When you are not in a field that is has specific formatting, that field is going to be blue, okay? So you notice that right now I'm in a blue field, and when I'm not in a field that is formatted, it is going to show me a color key. So you can see that the green fields are formatted fields. The gray field is the field that I'm currently in. I've got check boxes. I've also got extended comment fields. They're a slightly darker color blue. So if you're wondering which fields have extended comments associated with them, they are the darker blue fields, okay? When I go into a field that has specific formatting, let's go down here to, let's say, View. Now this turns into the format panel. Now, for those of you who are moving over from another software vendor like ACI or a la mode, they pop up things at you or overlays or things like that, and it's hard to get them to not do that. By default, Appraise-It Pro will let you type directly into the field. So for those of us who have been doing this for a long time and we know this formatting by heart, you can just type directly into the field. And when you tab out of it, if you have done the formatting correctly, it will just look normal. If you have made a mistake, it will turn red. Real simple, okay? But if I don't know the formatting by heart, I can come in here and I can say beneficial. We will say that it is a park view. And then we have a secondary view type, which is golf course view. I'm going to hit apply, and there we go. Now it's put that properly in there. Let's say I got this wrong, and I put E there instead of that. Well, it's going to count it right, but in most cases it will catch this, and it would turn it red for you, okay? And there's also apply and clear here, just like there were in Appraise-It Classic. And there's also the same as subject button. So if you wanted to carry it over from the left-hand side, it's going to carry that over all the way for you. You also can do the same equals, equals, or equal 1, equal 2 that you could do in Appraise-It Classic as well. Couple of more things I want to show you, and then we are going to call it a day, and I'll take some questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and get them into the chat now, or you can send them later to training@sfrep.com. In the lower right-hand corner down here, it is going to be, there's going to be a little button down here that is going to show what our current status is for all of our online services. So this will automatically turn either yellow or red on this little light down here. Yellow meaning that there's a degraded service, red meaning that there is a problem and one of the services is down. So if this turns red, it will say down flood maps. And then you can click on this and it'll give you a little bit more information. And then if you click on that, it will open up status.sfrep.com, which you can go to, by the way, even if you don't have Appraise-It Pro. And it will give you some additional information like an estimated time of resolution. You can also subscribe here. And you can subscribe to get text messages or emails whenever anything goes down or we have a problem or we have scheduled maintenance or something like that. I would highly recommend doing that. I do it just so I know what's going on. And it will text you whenever there is a problem. So that'll prevent you from having to even call tech support. Now, if you want to get in touch with tech support, you come over here to the support tab here and you can email them. You can chat in with them. And if something is not immediately pressing, I would highly recommend that you try out the chat because you can get in touch with somebody way quicker that way. Because a technician can be on the phone with somebody plus handle maybe 2 or 3 chats at the same time. So you're going to be able to get in touch with somebody pretty quickly. Even though our phone tech support is real quick as well, you may want to try out the chat support sometime. Email if it's not, something immediately pressing. And then we also have this knowledge base, which will open up support.sfrep.com. And here we have a bunch of what we call FAQs. These are articles with sometimes videos, but definitely with pictures that will show you how to do something. You can do a search here, or you can do them by product. Let's see. You can also check for updates here. You can send feedback. If you have any suggestions for SFREP, something you don't like, something you do like, you want to give a shout out to somebody, you can click on this send feedback, and that's going to kind of send it to all of the managers here at SFREP. So we'll be able to help you out quickly. But don't use this for support. You will get eventually support by doing this, but it's going to be delayed. I would highly recommend using the email under technical support for that. And of course, check server status. That's just going to open up that status.sfrep again. And one last thing over here, we have our social media. And also we have our training. So what I want to show you here real quick would be if you open up our website, and let me go ahead and open that up now. Here it is. If you go to our website, you mouse over, don't click on it, but just mouse over training and go down here to training calendar. This will show you a calendar of all of the trainings that we have coming up. You can see this one right here is the one that we're currently doing, an introduction to Appraise-It Pro. We don't do anything next week because that's Christmas week. And then my next training is going to be the part 2 to this one, which is Appraise-It Pro tips and tricks. And that one is going to be scheduled for 12 p.m. Eastern time. All times are Eastern on the 4th of January, 2024. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Because now is the time that you will probably want to get them in. Any questions at all, let me know. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, once again, if you're watching this after the fact, and remember, you can always go to that email and click on that link, and you can rewatch this video from the beginning. And you can also right now go all the way back to the beginning and watch it again if you wish. You can also go to our YouTube channel, which is simply youtube.com/SFREP, or just go to YouTube and search for SFREP, and you can see all of our pre-done videos on a variety of different topics, including training videos. And you can also go to the live tab and you can see all of the past webinars that we've done. Okay. So I don't see any questions now. So I'm going to take it that you guys got all of your questions answered. If not, send me an email. Once again, that is training@sfrep.com. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I hope everyone has because I'm not going to talk to you guys until after Christmas and New Year. So I hope everyone has a great Christmas and has an awesome New Year. I hope those of you that celebrate Hanukkah had a great Hanukkah, and we will see you in 2024 on January 4th at noon. I hope all of you have a great Christmas with your family. Travel safe, be safe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.